ScHoolboy Q, Blue Lips, and album review. Okay, Blue Lips is the 6th full-length project by West Coast rapper, Top Dog affiliate, and member of Black Hippie, ScHoolboy Q. It was released on March 1st. Here's the cover. Here's the track list. We've got about 18 songs, pretty deep, and we're just going to jump right into it with the first track being Funny Guy. I thought this was an interesting and good intro. I liked it. I found it whimsical and light in nature. It displays ScHoolboy Q's kind of humor. You know, we have these flutes that almost feel whimsical. They kind of dwindle and ascend, and they sound like a tornado that's taking you away from Kansas. It sounds like you're Dorothy. You're being taken away from this place that you're used to into this unknown land, you know, or maybe you're Alice, you're going down the rabbit hole. And instead of Mad Hatters and Cowardly Lions, it's just a bunch of Crips on Fig Street singing, bring the hoes, bring the money bags, bring the dope, bring the hoes, bring the money bags, you know. So it's a very interesting intro that I feel like sets up for what we're about to hear, which is ScHoolboy Q's absurd and humorous nature. You know, he's singing all these filthy lyrics and dirty nothings, you know, like fuck me, love me, slut, you know, all this shit. And it's very funny. The only thing I would say about this, if I had to critique it, I would say the intro may be a little bit too long. You know, it's 2 minutes and 36 seconds, you know, of him kind of flowing and creating these pretty dope hooks, which is what he does for the most part. But I think this could be a pretty short intro, no more than 1 minute and 30 seconds to me. But I do like the instrumentation, you know, the gentle guitar strumming, the minimal percussions. I dig it. So I don't mind that it's longer, but that would be my only critique. So I definitely like this track. The quotable, bring the dope, bring the hoes, bring the money bags in. All right, let's go to the next track, which is Pop. Pop I would describe as bold and abrasive. It's aggressive, it's confident, it's menacing, and it's assertive. The instrumentation almost reminds me of a WWF intro from the Attitude Era, you know, think D-Generation X or Vince McMahon's intro. And on top of that, it's braggadocious, you know. We hear Q talking his shit, how he popped off and quite literally pops off on us when the beat switches, you know. The first beat is this driving triplet kind of rhythm with these melodic organs, you know. It's very interesting how he takes that and it fits perfectly with the beat switch up, which is even more bizarre and more outlandish. You know, this tough bass line with slides and 808s that are reinforcing these knocking boom bap drums. I can't tell if this track is hip hop, electronic, or rock and roll. You know, we have these distorted guitars wailing. It's a very rebellious track in my opinion, you know, and ScHoolboy does what he does best, where he may not be getting all lyrical miracle on you, but he's going book, you know, or pop, you know. He's adding this energy, this kind of like feeling, almost reminds me of Death Grips, you know, where he has these mantras and these chants that are just bound to get the crowd lit if this goes off in the show. So to me, this is already one of the greatest tracks on this album, you know, one of the strongest tracks, and I think it makes up for the intro, which to some may have been lighter, you know, whimsical, and may not be, you know, as bold and in your face, but I would say this is the official intro as far as a song that will grasp all the listeners' attention, you know. But I definitely like this track. I like the quotable, I'm snatching niggas wave caps off and gang tats off, just beautiful. It reminds me of SpongeBob, where Sandy was walking into the Salty Spittoon and she takes the dude's tattoo that says mom and she rips it and puts it upside down and it says whoa. That snatching niggas tattoos off is very beautiful. I love Rico Nasty's verse as well. You know, her triplet flow is crazy. I love We Gonna Belittle Him, Don't Fuck With Little Man. That's a cool flow in itself, you know. I love the way she ends it. She's like, you gotta be kidding me, riddle me this. How many times I gotta tell y'all motherfuckers to start feeling this and it just cuts off. And I think that's the end to one of the hardest songs on the album. If you notice, there's a star at the top here that just shows that this song has a switch up, and that's something ScHoolboy tended to do on this album a lot. More than probably half of the songs have a switch up or a detour another part. And for listeners who have a short attention span, I think that is a good quality. You know, how do you feel about it? But take note of that as we progress through the review. So with that being said, Pop is a great song. Moving on to the third song, which is Thank God For Me. This track has a subtle intro, and then it gets really crunk immediately. lit brass horns, banger trap drums. That's how I would describe it. In the beginning, it's laid back and humorous. He's like, thank God for me. All his bitches gonna lie for him. Very kind of humorous way to kind of approach the snitching situation, in which he later kind of talks about in the track. The switch up, I would describe it as hype as and aggressive. The brass melody over trap drums, fire sub bass. I would describe his verses as content yet irritated, because like he's like thanking God, but also he's like so fed up with all this snitching shit as a fake side crip, that this shit just doesn't fly for him. So that's when it becomes assertive and aggravated, in my opinion, as far as the verse goes. But I do like this track. I like how he pays homage to Denzel Curry at the end with the sumo reference toward the end of the track. The flutes sample them in the beginning. I love how they preview it and then they kind of bring it back in with the drums of the hype horn section, kind of beat switch up. They kind of blend it well. Some people may not like the way that blends, but I do. If you don't like it, it is what it is. But I think it's a pretty cool track. If you notice the star at the top, that means that this is a track with a switch up, meaning, again, ScHoolboy is kind of adding variety to one song and giving different parts, maybe because he wants to keep the listener's attention, or he just wants to switch it up in his own preference or opinion. I think the quotable from this track would be, came home, nigga, that scandalous, caught red-handed, on candid, bitch-ass nigga, you fancy, IG looking like Bambi. Like, whoever he's talking about is getting a lot of strays, and ScHoolboy's going in. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool track, in my opinion. And moving on to the fourth track, which is Blue Slides. Blue Slides, I'd say it's a jazzy and sentimental track that pays homage to Mac Miller. It acts as a introspective backdrop for Q to vent about his vulnerable thoughts, about pitfalls that he may have avoided, that some of his friends may have fallen victim to. I would describe the track as chill and laid back. The sample, it's very minimal and gives Q enough space to just vent. It's almost like a therapeutic track, He talks about sometimes you got to be a deadbeat when the kids got to eat, and I'm sure that's just a nod to him being on tour and him working, or just maybe not being able to be there for whether his kids or his family members who that expect something of him. So, I think this is a really cool track. I like the minimal percussion. It's kind of this new age where drums aren't even that prevalent. The sample itself is enough for people to just spit on. So love this track. Definitely vulnerable and introspective again. Tell me how you feel about it in the comments. One of my favorite tracks as well on this album. But moving on to the fifth track, which would be Yearn 101. It has a hype and energetic feel. It's the third single off the album, released February 15th. I'll describe the mood as lit or energetic. There's a lot of bounce to it. I like the avant-garde kind of structure of the drums, where the stuttered kicks pair with the 808s, and there's a synth that's very eerie, kind of passes through the background. The beat switch up is subtle and fits well. It's not too distinct or different from each other, which fits perfectly. I would describe his verse as braggadocious. He sounds focused and sharp, like he's hitting these topics and pockets and he's dipping. He's going on to the next one. I would describe it as a waterfall flow that sounds like sprinting. The quotable, I would say, I ain't never your kind. Late, but I'm really on time. Girl, what you put in your mind? I ain't taking your sign. Truth or the pussy ain't mine. Let me say it one more time. He said truth or the pussy ain't mine. Hurt, but I made it out fine. Still in my prime. So Q is 6 albums deep, and he's talking this shit saying he's still in his prime. So it's a really braggadocious and lit track, in my opinion. I like it. If you notice that star at the top, that represents a switch up. So tell me how you feel about that. This is another track which has different parts, different detours to the song, as opposed to just one main melody or instrumental. So how do you feel about that? Do you like this kind of variety? Do you feel like it's too much? Leave a comment and let me know. But we're moving on to the next track, which is Lovebirds. It's featuring Devin Malik and Lance Skywalker. I think it's a very sentimental and lovey-dovey track with, of course, the humorous and absurd nature of Q. There's a lot of kind of wild and raunchy lyrics. He's like, got a house full of whores, no niggas here, got a NASCAR, get floored, I'm an engineer. I like how he kind of rides the pocket of this beat, and I would describe this beat has this oldies soul loop and a new age Griselda feel that is subtly intercepted by this jarring and stark beat with this distorted bass line, dun, dun, dun. And it's kind of reinforced with these kind of, I would describe it as drumline kind of percussions that kind of create these rudiments and pockets in which Q and Devin Malik and Lance Skywalker kind of carve out these pockets of flows and it's very raunchy. I describe the verse as satirical, you know. We have some verses like, think it's titty time now, put them pretty whites down in my city right now, let me find out. Some funny verses like, got a NASCAR, get floored, I'm an engineer. Got a spaceship, go orb, ain't no lemon here. You know, just funny rhymes inside of these pockets underneath this jarring bass line. So I think it's a really cool track. Everybody kind of does their thing to hold it down. I think it's a pretty solid track. If you notice the star there, a lot of switch ups. I do love how they bring the initial beat back and add drums to it. You know, for those who are boom bap fans or those who like minimal percussion, they give everybody a slice of the pie to get what they like. So I think it's a pretty good track. I think the quotable would be, in the bathroom need that quickly, but it's only if you miss me. But if not, it's no biggie. Got to show me that you with me. I think that kind of displays the raunchy, sentimental, and laid back feel of this track. You know, it's lovey-dovey, but it's not like Keith Sweat. He's not begging for pussy lovey-dovey. It's just like laid back and humorous. So I think it's a pretty cool track. But going on to the next track, that would be Movie featuring AZ Chike. So this is kind of a track where Q kind of just creates an atmosphere and lets his West Coast affiliate hold it down. And I think it's a cool track. I'll describe it as a bounce kind of like dance vibe, very like Bay Area, West Coast vibe to it. This is going to be a club banger, definitely fun and club-like is how I'll describe the mood. The intro beat where Q talks his shit, I think it's funny. He says, today I find out you fools are paid $275 a line. Really hilarious. I don't know how much $275 is. Like, it depends. Like, if you're getting $275 for a 16, that's some decent bread, but, you know, who am I to make a statement on that? But beat switch is pretty cool. I like the West Coast vibe again, like I said. The verse is braggadocious and funny, and I'll say it's braggadocious and hype. As far as AZ, he delivers pretty well in my opinion. The verse quotable to me would be, let me put you in the movie. Niggas getting smoked like a Lucy. Fox 5 Channel 9 make the newsy. Ain't my bad that you chose to be choosy. That is some funny shit, and I like this song. It's really cool. If you notice that star at the top, another switch up. Tell me how you feel about that. I think it fit perfectly with this track. But moving on to the 8th track, which would be Cooties. On Cooties, Q seems to open up on this track telling us about his pitfalls and his fears regarding his personal and work life. He sounds content but also concerned. He sounds introspective and pessimistic, you know. The instrumental, I would describe it as laid back, boom bap. There's a bit of a cymbal that acts as the hi-hat, kind of keeping the quarter notes. I would describe the melody as jazzy, a grand piano over a bass line, very chill. The verse sounds vulnerable, introspective, and analytical. A quotable would be mass shootings. When will they stop? Another kid gone for unlimited profits. So I think that's very political, kind of nod to all this madness if you're in America or keep up with the news, school shootings, public shootings every other day. So he goes on to say, rather keep my kid home before you fuck up the process, you know? And that's what it sounds like Cooties, you know, he's keeping his kids home from all this bullshit. And a lot of people may feel the same way. You know, a lot of people are starting to do homeschool. A lot of students and teachers never went back after pandemic and a lot of things that happened. So I think Cooties kind of touches on that as far as keeping distance and raising your kids and family right. But I think this is a really cool track. Another one of my favorites, definitely a contender. Moving on to the next one would be the 9th track, which is Ohio, featuring Freddie Gibbs. So this track has about 3 segments, and I love how they all blend together. I think Q and Gibbs have a good chemistry. I would describe the mood in the first track as player, you know, like really chill, slow bass line, player rhythm. I want to assume that's an Ohio Players sample, you know, just from the title and context clues, but we'll check and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The beat switch up to the thumping 808s with the clap, clap, clap. I love that kind of like, again, the drum pattern is very unique and it kind of gives a vibe. The third beat switch up in which Freddie Gibbs raps on, I think it's really cool. The sample specifically, I know very well. It's Naima by Tom Scott and the California Dreamers, a really laid back jazzy standard track. It's a cover of Naima by Tom Scott. That's about his first wife. I think it's a really cool sample. I love the way they chop it and I love the way Freddie kind of raps over it. I don't know what it is. I think Freddie Gibbs' voice, it sounds like it's pitched down a certain way. I don't know if there's a filter on it or some kind of like compression, but his voice sounds, I don't know, sounds just a bit low pitched, and I think it's pretty cool. They're both introspective on this track, but I think one of the verses are just funny. He says, "Smack a nigga in his mouth for the loot. If I ever catch that pussy nigga academics, I'ma catch another lawsuit." So that's just a funny name drop. It's always hilarious to see beef between rappers and journalists. So definitely a funny track. I think the quotable for that track would be, "We could find the truth through your children." You know, that's what Q says. He said, "Are you prostituting or you pimping? We could find the truth through your children." And it's very true with your offspring is a replication of how you raised them. I like how ScHoolboy and Freddie Gibbs kind of go back and forth. Like Q starts off saying hella hoes like Prince, and then Freddie Gibbs says hella hoes like Rick, meaning Rick James. And if you know anything, Rick James and Prince, they were like rivals, you know, damn near like neck and neck as far as like just saucy, eclectic 80s pop artist, you know. So I think that was a really cool kind of back and forth with starting and ending a verse between the two. That was a really cool track. If you notice the star, again, another beat with the switch up. Tell me how you feel about that. Moving on to the 10th track, Foe featuring Ab-Soul, Soul Brother number 2. So I think this track right off the back, it gives me a trilogy vibe to Drug You With Hoes and Drug You With Hoes Again from ScHoolboy's first and second album. I think this beat just fits perfectly with Solo. It has a very dystopian, eerie feel to it. You know, these kind of stuttering, I want to call them drill UK kind of off kilter beats, but it fits really well. The lyrics are pessimistic in nature. You know, Q says things like he's had everything and it's still not enough. It almost sounds like he's depressed. And if we look at some of the lyrics in the other tracks, he talks about he almost died twice. And we talk about Ab-Soul, some of his interviews, recent ones, he talked about dealing with suicide and depression as well. So, you know, this track has a very anarchist kind of pessimistic feel to it. You know, it's almost stoic in a way, and that's what I think Ab-Soul brings to the table in this kind of stoic nature. If we look at the hook or the chorus, he goes, "Got a house full of cars and to be like that, house full of pain and to be like that, felt out of love and to be like that, mouthful of drugs and to be like that." You know, he's kind of just going through the motions, and he really sounds depressed on this. And even like Ab-Soul along with this, it kind of has this "it is what it is" vibe again, you know. And if we listen to the track before this, Q was just talking about how he's in love again, but now his main bitch fell out of love again, him and Ab-Soul. It's kind of funny that this track immediately precedes Lovebirds, where he talks about being in love again. So it's kind of like a duality thing where you may be in love, but you might fall out. You may be up, but you might be down, and it be like that. So I think this is a very cool track. I like it a lot. One of the quotables also from Ab-Soul would be, "Cocaine is a hell of a drug, and my year been heaven above, but enough is just never enough. I'm stuck when I should be leveling up. My main bitch done fell out of love." And then they kind of go to this really cool mantra that reminds me of the Drug You With Hoes era, you know, marijuana, hydro, pussy, hoe, ass, titties. There we go. Q just delivering these like mantras and these hooks and choruses that just get people going. You know, this would go off in a concert or a live show at any given day. And I think it kind of adds a flair to the track. It's kind of a "it is what it is." So we finna marijuana, hydro, pussy, hoe, ass, titties. So I think this is a dope track. Definitely one of my favorites. Let's move on to the 11th track, which is First. Now this song just feels like an anthem for Ray J, Kanye, and SoulJa Boy, because it seems like Q is joining the races and saying he did it first. So whatever it is that you think you did, he did it first and much earlier. So it's braggadocious, it's bold, it's humorous. The instrumental, I would describe it as a trap banger with these blaring vocals that are telling you who did it first, you know. Sounds like a DJ club banger that would go off during spring break or some shit, you know. Describe the verse as confident, braggadocious, slightly humorous. There's a bit of a switch up that I would describe as psychedelic. It reminds me of a Conan Moccasin song. If you want to go listen to it, it's called Forever Dolphin Love, and there's a bit of a passage in between that 10-minute track, which the guitars wail back and forth, very similar to this part of Q's song. So check it out. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I would describe this track as satirical and it's funny, and just Q displaying his humorous nature. It's a banger. Moving on to the 12th track, which is New. Over New, Q kind of reminisces over his past from leaving school, taking risks in the streets, and the luxuries that come with beating the odds. I would say it's nostalgic. It's a bit satirical and funny. The instrumental starts off with this lush melody laid over this triplet pattern. I would say the drums kind of have this stuttering kind of groove, over this tripling pattern. His verse, I would say it's reminiscent. It's nostalgic. He's kind of looking back, but he sounds content. So it's a pretty cool song. Definitely has a place on this album. But moving on to the next track, which is Back in Love featuring Devin Malik. This is a real laid back, braggadocious kind of trap banger. I love the stuttered kicks on the production, the kind of menacing bass line kind of has this grimy feel to it. Aside from that, it sounds like Q is having fun. He's back in love with this rap shit, and I think they're really just having fun. Some of the lyrics I like by Devin Malik: on a mission, be the voice of 20,000 kids. Yeah, D-Generation X, Triple H's shit. Hey, I like those lyrics. They really kind of reference WWE. I kind of made a reference to that a couple tracks ago, so that was cool. But they're really talking their shit. Q is really divulging. He's like, around 9, I was trying to have sex. I did. And then he's like 13, and I caught a new flex. Really interesting shit. Ask why, then you'll probably get blessed. He said, I got an iceberg flooding my neck. Got an old bitch really upset. Got a new thing. What'd you expect? Really controversial and braggadocious lyrics, but I'm here for it. So it's a really cool track, and I dig it. Moving on to the next track, Lost Time. Lost Time featuring Jazzy. This track, we see Q lament about his personal time, which has been lost, whether with friends or family, or maybe with work and other trials and tribulations. A lot of hate in this track. He feels kind of spited by people close to him. It almost feels like he's talking about being persevering, with all the hate that people are still giving him. He feels a bit pessimistic in my sense, as far as he's dealing with betrayal and other moods, but still comes off stoic. The beginning instrumental, I would describe it as funky, these horns that kind of switch up to this soul sample with keys and minimal percussions. We have these high-pitched strings that kind of just drape over that melody, and then these boom bap drums kind of come in to essentially enforce this kind of minimal drum sample and kind of give it this variation. So I like it. To me, the quotable on this track was, we all need help, but first we must believe in ourselves. We all want wealth, right? But first we got to learn how to fail. So definitely some real words of wisdom Q is dropping. I like the track a lot. You notice that start at the top. A lot of variations, switch ups in this track. Moving on to the 15th track, which is Germany 86. This sounds like an appreciative track, kind of an ode to black women. His mother, his baby mama, he gives props to both of them. He says, my superhero is a woman. She served for the country. He kind of just like really puts on for his mom, and it's really sweet and beautiful. It's reminiscent. The sample has this oldies soul sample feel, minimal drums. Reminds me of something that Rock Marciano or Mike, maybe Earl, might rap over. The switch up at the end to the detuned jazzy piano loop is interesting. I like how it immediately cuts to pain, because I feel like a big theme in ScHoolboy's album is, I guess, not being forever. Like, there's a lot of switch ups and a lot of ups and downs, which may reflect mood swings, or just life won't always be consistent. You have to kind of learn to go with the ups and downs. But you see that star at the top corner, another beat with a switch up. Tell me how you feel about it. Did you like it? Is it cohesive? Moving on to the 16th track. We're closing out soon. Time Killers. I think he's flowing on this personally. If you're looking for some rapping, this is your track. He sounds hungry, in my opinion. The percussion on this is amazing to me. We have these toms that kind of fall where snares usually are. They have delay added to them. Kind of makes this kind of glorious pocket and cinematic vibe when these drum fills kind of eventually take over every quarter note or end of a 4th or 8th bar. So I really like it. The melody, this reversed guitar, it's simple but very effective and gives room for Q to really spit and be hungry. I describe it as gritty, hungry, braggadocious, and serious. It's also kind of funny. I think the quotable in itself of this track, I don't take advice from niggas with no hoes. Nigga, you talk so much, you use the hoes. Which is funny because niggas do be running their mouth, and it's just a funny way to kind of like show duality or juxtaposition. but I like this track a lot. Moving on to the 17th track, Pig's Feet. We have featuring Childish Major. I would describe this as a hype club banger, guaranteed to make you do hood rat shit with your friends, or your money guaranteed back. The mood is dark and hype. I would describe it as lit and bounce as well. The instrumental, describe it as dark arpeggiating guitars in a triplet fashion. This kind of singular 808 note that kind of glues everything together with these bounce drum patterns. You know, with these claps, the occasional glass shatter to just add this glorious FX. Feels like Stone Cold is pulling up every other verse. The verse, I describe it as a hard flowing with hype chants. You know, there are many lit chants, which again, ScHoolboy, if you heard me earlier, he's good at doing this, creating these choruses, these hooks, these mantras, these chants where it's bound to get lit at the show. I'm really excited to see how this pans out in live shows. I'm excited to see it. To me, the quotable would be, there's some drop top shit. We're going to bounce out quick. We're going to slide like this. How do Babe Ruth miss? That's a good ass flow, because how does Babe Ruth miss? But going to the closeout track, outro, we have Smile for track 18. To me, I wish this track was much longer, but what I came to the conclusion was it's supposed to be short because happiness is a temporary emotion, you know. But I would describe the mood as happy, it's sunny, it's content, it's grateful. You know, he's like, I fell out for a word. You know, the new car goes squirt, my old bitch gets swerve. I love all these flows, you know. But the light percussion on this is cool. It has this waltz triplet kind of feel. You know, I think it's a really cool track. I love the instrumentation on it. I love how Q kind of previews or kind of croons a little bit, showing his melodic and singing skills. He does that a lot throughout this album, but it's very subtle. I don't think he's trying to force it down our throat. Pause. But overall, this was a really cool track and a good way to close out a really dope album. Finishing up, to me, the standout tracks and my personal favorites were Pop featuring Rico Nasty, Blue Slides, Ohio featuring Freddie Gibbs, and Smile. Definitely the standout tracks in my opinion, but tell me, what were the standout tracks for you? If I missed anything, any references, samples you noticed, verses that you thought stood out that I didn't cover, drop a comment and let me know. Also, tell me what I should review next. You know, if it's new, let me know. If it's old, still drop a comment. I'll review it and give my in-depth feedback and analysis. But aside from that, I'd give this project a 7. I think it's really dope. I still have to sit and listen to it, but yeah. ScHoolboy Q, Blue Lips, and we out.